Ethical Perspectives on the News is produced by the Interreligious Council of Linn County, which is solely responsible for its content. The views and opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of KCRG TV9.
Good morning and welcome to Ethical Perspectives on the News. My name is Diehl. I'm currently the president of the Interreligious Council of Linn County. On this morning's show, we're going to talk about reducing crime in Cedar Rapids. And here to discuss this very, very important topic, I have three well-qualified guests with me this morning. And what I'd like to do before we get into this topic is just have you introduce yourself, what you do, and why this is important to you.
I'm Dale Todd. This is my fourth term on the Cedar Rapids City Council. I have been on the Public Safety and Youth Services Committee for the last 6 years. I chair that the last 2 years. I originally got involved with public safety issues back when crack cocaine first came to Cedar Rapids in about 95, when I was involved with the Wellington Heights Neighborhood Association. This is what I do. I lived right here in Wellington Heights, and my goal is to make sure that people feel safe where they live.
Thank you. And Carla?
Yeah, my name is Karla Tweet-Ball. I am the Senior Vice President of Programs at the Greater Cedar Rapids Community Foundation. We're a grant maker, first and foremost, so we help support really good work. We support nonprofit organizations in Linn County, and we get involved in some of the key community issues that really go to making this a great place to live. So that's how we got involved in some of the public safety work and the collaboration with the city, county, and the school district, and been working with the police department on some of the public safety issues. From my own perspective as a community foundation employee, we're really interested in making great places to live where everybody can thrive.
Thank you, Carla.
Good morning. I'm Wayne Jerman. I'm Chief of Police for the City of Cedar Rapids. I've been the chief since October of 2012. And it is my number one priority and goal to reduce crime and the perception of crime in the city of Cedar Rapids and make Cedar Rapids as safe as we can.
All right. Again, thank you for joining us this morning. So, Chief, you referenced the idea of perception, and certainly it's no secret over the last couple of years, due to a variety of reasons, COVID being one of them, and some of the social unrest, that crime, violent crime, different varieties of crime have increased nationally, and Cedar Rapids seems to have followed that trend. There certainly is a perception that maybe our crime is greater than other cities of our relative size. And I thought a good place for us to start is talking about the perception of crime here in Cedar Rapids, Chief Jerman, versus the actual rate of crime increase or otherwise. Could you just take a moment and speak to that? And then Dale and Carla, you can certainly chime in.
Sure, Al, I'd be happy to. This is a very, very complex and complicated issue. And you touched on a couple of, the causations or what me and my colleagues all across the country are dealing with. Crime and specifically violent crime is increasing in various communities all across the country. Unfortunately, Cedar Rapids has not been immune to this increase, but it's not as great of an increase that a lot of people think. And I hope we get into the details of the GVI program, but we did a very thorough assessment of group involved violent crime. And through this analysis, it was determined that group-related or gang-related crime in Cedar Rapids, or crime committed by these individuals, amounted to 0.06% of the population here in the city. And when we compare those very same factors with other cities in the country, that rate increases 10 times. Their rate is 0.6%. So while, one incident of violent crime is one too many, we're going to continue to be vigilant and diligent in addressing not just the perception, but the actual increases that occur here in the city.
When you look at the numbers, again, we can make numbers do anything. But if you're in a neighborhood or in a location where there's a lot of activity, then yeah, it's a concern. If you're not, then you're going to be safe. By that I mean, we did see a increase during the pandemic for a host of reasons. A lot of the institutions that provide services to people, those became almost non-existent. The courts failed to operate at their full level of service. People on edge with the pandemic, with the economy, people became on edge. And last but not least, we've seen a significant increase in the amount of guns that are on the street. What's disturbing to me is that I look at these shots fired incidents and I see the age of the kids that are involved appears to have gotten lower. Historically, years ago, these incidents were isolated to one or two different hotspots in certain neighborhoods. Now they're more dispersed throughout the city. They're also there's a larger volume of shots fired. By that I mean guns that used to fire 2-3 shots now fire 20, 30, and so that's an alarming trend that I have seen. But I would suggest here in Cedar Rapids, we've got a pretty good handle on what is going on. I think the department has a good idea of who's doing what and when. It's a matter of putting cases together and putting the people that are responsible for it behind bars. At the same time, we're trying to provide opportunities for kids and for adults to keep them out of the system. And that's a new addition to the paradigm that we historically have not had. And Carla and the foundation have a lot to do with that.
Yeah, several years ago, the community came together and wanted to take a look at what the issues were that were leading to this uptick in gun violence. So the Safe, Equitable, and Thriving Task Force came together, lots of different subcommittees looking at a lot of the different issues that were leading to some really egregious youth-on-youth crime incidences. That's when the Community Foundation got involved, is when the city and the county and the school district came to us and asked if we could be involved from a sort of grant maker perspective. So the work that we've been doing with all of them has focused really on this youth violence issue, and then looking more broadly at gun violence. One of the things we've learned in that, and I think this is an important thing for us to know, is that the research on gun violence shows that although we all feel unsafe, and that's sort of the core of this idea of perception that we were talking about, that violence tends to congregate in networks. And so it's a very small group of people who are at high risk of violent victimization as well as perpetration. And so that gives opportunities for intervention in ways that can help lead to better outcomes for those individuals. And then also that, most people then are not at risk if they're not engaged in these networks of violence, and that there are some things to do to help intervene in that situation.
So I want to ask specifically, this episode is in the shadow of one of the worst mass shootings, I would say, in Iowa history. It may be the worst, I don't know. But it's certainly up there with 2 people killed and 10 injured. There's again a perception, right, that some of the crime, violent and otherwise, that we're dealing with in Cedar Rapids specifically may be due to people that have an affinity for crime flowing in from larger cities, notably one to our east. Is there any validity to that? And if so, is there anything we can do to address that proactively or reactively? And Chief Jerman, maybe you can take that.
Sure. Alan, again, there's lots of theories as to, what is leading to, the increases in the violence and specifically what happened, in the nightclub shooting. To blame it on a city, I don't think is, what we need to be doing. We need to look at all the causes, all the factors that are contributing to the reasons why, I guess, disagreements lead to, the use of violence and the use of guns. I think Councilman Todd touched on the proliferation of firearms. And I'd like to, make sure I comment that, it's those individuals who choose to use firearms illegally and choose to use firearms to settle their differences. That's the main issue we're looking at. The case from the nightclub is still a very active investigation. So I can't go into the greater details. Once the criminal complaint is released on Mr. Walker, I think there'll be some more information and more details brought to light. But again, it's the reasons why individuals are, resorting to the use of firearms, deadly force to settle their differences. And, that's something that, I noticed years ago, and that's why we continue to make it the number one priority here in Cedar Rapids to address gun violence. We've got officers committed and focused on addressing those individuals who, again, choose to use guns illegally and illegally possess guns. We also have officers assigned to federal task forces, and we've also got the latest in equipment from the ATF that we can use to establish leads that will help build cases and identify and locate those individuals who are responsible for it.
Yeah, I would just say that, I'm from Chicago. I'm from Woodlawn, the South Side. The Blackstone Rangers started in our church where my mom worked at. And I'm just going to, here's the, 95, when Kevin Eatman from Chicago, from Inglewood, was shot on 2nd Avenue. We've been having this debate, and it doesn't do anybody any good, because the reality is that people have been coming here from Chicago since the 80s, and it doesn't make them a criminal at all, because they're trying to move and get a better life in some place. These are people who make choices to carry guns. What we're finding is a lot of these people happen to be felons, criminals already. And what we have to do, we have to focus on deterrence, providing them with options. If you look at the reasons why, and we're not going to talk about this case here, but a lot of the time these events happen, you'll find that they're just based on the littlest event, the littlest thing, whether it was drugs. It used to be drugs back in the day. Now, very seldom is it about drugs. It's about respect, and it's about maybe you looked at me wrong. And keep in mind too, Alan, that weekend, these events happened all across the country. A series of events, South Carolina, Pittsburgh. I mean, this is something new that cities are dealing with, in a way that we've never really had to deal with before. And we're all trying to figure out what's going on.
I would just add, to Dale's point, people migrate to new communities for all kinds of reasons, but I think an underlying cause of that is that they're looking for opportunity and they're looking for hope. To bring back to, why I'm sitting here as one of the community members in this, Chief Jerman, one of the phrases that he says a lot, and, I appreciate is, we can't arrest our way out of the challenges that we're experiencing. And what he's saying is that law enforcement can't be the only reaction to gun violence, to public safety issues. That, I think there's the need for people to have hope and for people to have opportunity. Coming back to that initial SET report, it was looking at all kinds of things, economic opportunity, as well as the law enforcement relationships. It was looking at housing. It was looking at educational opportunity, programming and community engagement. So, the community piece in this, and particularly with this strategy that we're working on right now in the community called group violence intervention, the community piece is a huge piece of this. It's that, the violence, we're not going to tolerate that. We're going to stop that if that happens. But also we want to offer you hope and help and be able to help you navigate some other ways of making choices in your life. A lot of people who are engaged in this have backgrounds that have lots of trauma. They don't feel safe. They don't have the access to the resources that they need to make different choices in their life. So that's where the community piece comes in of, we want to help you with that.
Yeah, Carla, I just want to say, because we get caught up on this tangent often. We used to be able to blame Chicago on our crime problems. We can't do that anymore. These are our own kids and daughters. They've been here. This is second, third generation of families that have been here. This is our community. This is who we are. And so I just want to make that clear. These folks involved Cedar Rapidians,
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and part of the reason I bring it up is to kind of, speak to that point, right? Is that I'm sure much of this crime is committed by Cedar Rapidians, first and second generation, third generation. I'm seventh generation, right?
Okay.
Not that I'm committing crime, but the point is, yes, we can't point to other cities and say, gosh, if they didn't exist, we'd be fine. So we have to deal with it. And, part of it is what I would call kind of the root cause or root solution fallacy, Carla, what you had said, in that there isn't one particular way to solve this, and there isn't one particular reason why it's happening in the first place, right? And trying to come up with easy solutions or easy causes is probably the wrong way to look at it. And I think that's what you're saying, Carla, and the rest of the people, that it's going to take a comprehensive, holistic approach where it isn't the chief of police, solving it all on his own, but it's going to be all of us invested in the community. So maybe speak a little bit more to that of, as much as we want to point fingers at causes and easy solutions, how we need to kind of rewire our thinking here and take ownership. So whoever wants to, I don't even know if I had a question there, but I want to continue with that train of thought because I think it's important.
Yeah, and I'll add on to what Carla brought up, Alan. And when I say we can't arrest our way out of this, that is one point. But when the GVI began to become formed, the missing piece that I identified and that we were longing for was the engagement and interaction from community members with these individuals who are at risk of becoming a victim of gun violence, and those individuals who are choosing to engage in the activity that involves gun violence. So I think that's where when GVI came up and hit the street running, that was the missing piece that I felt as law enforcement was missing, was having members of the community engaged, members of the community connecting with, again, those at risk of becoming victims and those engaged in the criminal activity. And GVI with the foundation and Foundation 2 are in partnership with the police department and other members of public safety and law enforcement. And I really do see it making a positive difference. And we need to keep it going, and we need to continue to promote it.
And I'm sorry, I may have missed it, but could you explain for our audience GVI, what that represents?
GVI is the acronym for the Group Violence Intervention Initiative, and it's a program that we adopted. It started way back in 2019 with the Greater Cedar Rapids Community Foundation. Received a grant, and they assisted in getting the program up and running. It's really the work of the National Network for Safe Communities, and what it does is bring all the players involved and puts us all on the same sheet of music. And right now, Captain Brent Long of the police department is kind of the tip of the spear. He holds several meetings with the stakeholders every week. They identify and they review incidents, and then use information, and they go out and again meet with these potential victims and also those who are engaged in these activities, and offer them resources and ways out of that lifestyle, because we don't want to see these individuals shot or injured as a result of an act of violence. We really don't want to put them in jail. And most of all, we don't want to see them, killed as a result. So, hopefully with this program and those community members who are engaged, again, I think it's making a difference, and we need to continue to promote it.
And Karla and Diehl, do you have something to add as far as what we can do as Cedar Rapidians, as common citizens, right, to do our due diligence and making sure that we, help to create an atmosphere in which, it's more difficult or less appealing, if you will, for people to commit crime? How can we think of it instead of, how can we truly take ownership as a community?
Carla, I'll go. I think what we need to make sure that we do is that there, as you mentioned, Alan, there are no wrong and answers. This is a discussion, and everybody has a place in this discussion. It's not about completely giving a blank check to the police department. It's about looking at the system as it is and making the reforms that are needed, and implementing systems based on research and modern day policing. The things have changed. They've changed drastically. I think there's an acknowledgement amongst a lot of us that some of the things we've done in the past didn't work or turn out the way that they should have. But it really starts at the neighborhood level with people making a call to the police when they see something that they believe is not appropriate. And when they do make that touch, it's up to the police department to be responsive and to hold those that make inappropriate choices accountable. And we're going to do that. What we have to do too at the same time is we've learned that the closer we bring the police department together with the community, the better off we all are. And there are times when in other communities in particular, the department and the city and the community get apart. And when that happens, crime just, it increases. We're lucky. We've got one of the best departments I've seen in 20, 30 years. And we've got a council that's committed to trying to do things that we haven't done traditionally before, putting the infrastructure in place so that we give people opportunities and exits off of this, out of the criminal justice system. If they work and if they pay their dues, we want to see folks make it. And so I think we're making we're in a good place. It's uncharted territory for a lot of us, but when Karla and the foundation are doing, it's a critical piece of what's been missing all these years.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick up on the community piece of this. We work with a lot of nonprofits. I think the nonprofit community in the Cedar Rapids area is very, very highly regarded, high functioning. They're very networked together, and they're working collaboratively to solve problems. It goes beyond just the formal structure of organizations and nonprofits. It's also community groups and that sort of willingness to help people have second chances in a supported way and being part of that solution. It's community groups like Keon Carter at the Wellington Heights Neighborhood Church, who's helping to build, a welcoming, strong environment. It's Foundation 2, who's providing support and outreach. I think it's the schools who are, working hard to make sure that kids have opportunities and choices. So it is all of us. I mean, that's when we say it takes a village. It's all of us being able to play parts in the roles that we're doing. If we're employers, people need jobs. They need a chance to learn new skills. So we all can play a role in helping to make our community safer.
Yeah, and I think it's, important to, again, put this in context. If you look at the last 30 years, right, the crime rates of all kinds continue to trend down. Even at its peak, I think in 2020, it was still half all crime rates pretty much of what it was in 1990. So something's working. What we've done in the past is working. I think we continue to do that, but we just have a couple minutes left here. And Chief Jerman, I think I want to go back to the point that Diehl made earlier about, the trust, the relationship between the police department and the community. There's a body of evidence, right, that good policing, good police practices certainly help and contribute to the reduction in crime. Could you talk a little bit more about what the police department is doing proactively to regain that trust, build that trust here in Cedar Rapids?
Yeah, sure. And you're exactly right. It is about trust and transparency from the police department with all segments of the community. And I think one of the biggest testaments is that the police department has implemented the Citizen Review Board. And the review board is 9 members of the Cedar Rapids community, and they're beginning to review cases and also review the statistical data of the police department. They've got an outreach plan in place, and they want to connect with members of the community as well, and want to work with the police department to work and create closer ties with the community. So it's all about working together.
Thank you. And we just have about 30 seconds. So Diehl and Karla, if you could wrap us up by saying, what's one thing that I can do? I'm watching this episode on Sunday morning. What can I do to help make Cedar Rapids safer?
I would say get to know your neighbors, get to know other people in the community, and build strong networks.
Diehl?
I would say the same. And don't listen to the noise out there. Get to know your neighbors, and if you have a question, a problem, a concern, call the police chief. Don't be afraid to do that. Let him know.
We're going to be putting the cell number right here at the bottom.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, very good. Well, I appreciate everybody's participation this morning. This was excellent. Certainly, it's a complex topic that isn't going to be resolved in a 30-minute conversation. But again, I appreciate it. Hope our audience has a great morning, and thank you very much. Take care now.
Thank
Be
you.
good. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.